company did is they charged the admission to the fair, which is about $15 by today's standards, and they charged the same price to ride the Ferris wheel. So we decided to have another fair in 1933, and this fair was called the Century of Progress. And it was held on what we call the museum campus, which is where you can find the Shedd Aquarium, the Adler Planetarium, the Field Museum, and Soldier Field. That's where the Chicago Bears play. So, where misery lives. Now, that's all part of Grant Park. Also part of Grant Park, but not part of the museum campus, is the Art Institute of Chicago. People frequently ask me, what's the one thing I should do when I'm in Chicago? And I tell everyone to take a Windella boat ride. You guys are doing that. I highly recommend the Art Institute of Chicago. It's one of the top 10 art museums in the world, one of the largest collections of Impressionist art outside of Paris. And right now they have a Monet exhibit. With that, we're going to head down the south branch of the Chicago River. We're going to resume talking about architecture. We're going to resume looking on the right side. We've got this building with the arch. It's called River Point, completed in 2017. The architects are Picard and Chilton. And as of 2020, it is LEED certified platinum. But what's more important is that all of these buildings that we're about to see are built over active train tracks. And that introduces some interesting structural engineering conundrums. As illustrated by the building 150 North Riverside, you might be looking at it wondering if the architects ever even built a Lego tower. It was completed in 2017. The architects are Getchell Partners. So on one side is the river. On the other side of this plot of land is the train tracks. So on one side is the train tracks, on the other side is the river, so the most the base of the building could ever be is 40 feet wide. You can't build a very tall building on a skinny little base. I'm using traditional structural engineering. But as you can also see, we are committed to utilizing every last inch of the river. So they figured out a way to make it work. See these silver things? They're called I-beams, and they're made with a steel from Luxembourg, and they're the strongest I-beams in the world, and they go deep into bedrock. And then on the top of the building is what's known as a mass damper system. It's 160, you can't see it, but it's 160,000 gallons of water in 4 containers on rollers. And if the computer indicates the wind is going too hard in one direction, it'll activate the damper system and send it in the opposite direction to serve as a counterbalance, or a ballast, if you will. Then we have 100 North Riverside, completed in 1990. Perkins and Will are the architects. But we just call it the Boeing building because it's the world headquarters to Boeing. Now, fun fact, Boeing owns the building, but they don't own the land. They're on a land lease. So what that means is that every year they pay money to rent the land upon which the building that they own is built. Which is ridiculous. It's just not the most ridiculous thing we're going to hear in this tour today. That's on a few more buildings. In the meantime, there's a Boeing store for all your Boeing needs. Then we've got 2 North Riverside, completed in the 1920s. Halliburton and Root are the architects. And it's Art Deco. It was home to the very first public plaza in Chicago. Also the home to the Chicago Daily News, which is a newspaper that went out of business in the 1970s. But it's where syndicated columnist Mike Royko started his career. Now this whole neighborhood is called the West Loop. The West Loop is one of the hottest neighborhoods in Chicago. You'll find some of the best restaurants in the world in the West Loop. 60, 70 years ago, it was Skid Row. All you're going to find in the West Loop then is gin joints, flop houses, and broken dreams. But it got turned around when they built a series of 4 buildings called the Gateway Center. Gateway 1 was completed in 1965. It's a 22-story international style building. Skidmore owns, you own the air above your home, above your property, so no one can ever build on top of it without your permission. Through the years, the owners of Union Station have sold their air rights to 6 different entities, and they've been resold many times over. It's to the point where the owners of Union Station can't figure out who owns what. And it's a little confusing, but it is the most American thing you're going to hear on the tour today. People are buying, selling, and renting air. Gateway 2, identical 22-story international style building as Gateway 1, completed in 1967. Skidmore, Owings & Merrill are the architects. Bruce Graham is the lead architect. Then we've got Gateway 3, now called Fifth Third Center, completed in the 1970s. SOM are the architects. Bruce Graham is the lead architect. It's also an entrance for Union Station because you use concave and convex screen glass, and the other buildings will do this orientation. And you can see how they create that kaleidoscopic effect. On the other side of the bridge is the former Chicago Main Post Office. And when it was completed in the 1920s, it was the largest post office in the United States of America. Art Deco, Graham Anderson Tobin, one of the architects. They closed it in the 1990s because it was old. In the early 2000s, a British guy by the name of Bill Davies purchased the property. And he had really big plans of what he was going to do with it, but he had to get $1 billion loan. And he couldn't get the $1 billion loan. So it sat empty for a long time, and in fact, it was about to go into eminent domain. You see this bridge we're about to go under? It becomes the Eisenhower Expressway. And the city was concerned that the building was going to fall down on the cars. Luckily, that never happened, because a company called 601W came in and purchased it. Bill Davies was an older guy, and it's speculated that he was lonely. And the reason he held onto the property for as long as he did was he liked the attention he got from potential buyers. Ladies and gentlemen, on the right-hand side, we have Ping Tom Park, which is named after a Chinese-American businessman. And it's all part of Chinatown, which is the second largest in the United States of America. We started going to Chinatown as an offering here at Wendella in January of 2020. You heard that correctly, January, and yes, people bought tickets. And I hadn't been to Chinatown in years, and I felt like a little bit of a fraud, so I was telling everybody how great Chinatown was, and I hadn't been there. So I decided to come to Chinatown and really understood the culture, and we went to Chinatown, and we spent several hours in Chinatown doing some boots on the ground research. And I came back armed with suggestions of things you guys should do in Chinatown. That was on March 1st, 2020. I don't remember anything. I remember where I had dim sum. I can make a dim sum recommendation. Now, directly in front of us, we're going to talk about a building. We've got this red international style building. Behind that is a white building with black vertical windows. That's the Aeon Center. It's also been called the Standard Oil Building, the Amoco Building. It's the fourth tallest building in the city of Chicago. The architect is Edward Durrell Stone. And the building was originally clad in Italian Carrara marble, which is some of the most expensive marble in the world. It's what Michelangelo used. So to cut down on that, they rioted at City Hall. So that was what I thought was one of the most Chicago things I'd ever heard. And then I listened to a podcast called Why the Great Chicago Flood is the most Chicago thing ever. And I knew we had a flood, but I didn't really care about it. Gallons of water. That was the largest underground flood in the history of the United States of America, until Hurricane Sandy, which was 500 million gallons of water. Meaning Chicago is, in this case, second. And I think it might be the most Chicago thing I've ever heard. Now we're going to go on the left-hand side. I've got a visual, and we've got a DSW shoes and a Whole Foods. And about a block west of that is a red and white radio. And that is the approximate location. This is O'Leary's barn, where we run around what we call the world. So if the reason is fire, the panic goes out, the building is very, very low occupancy. So Longview and Willis Insurance Group, they're an insurance company out of London. They were the brokerage for the Titanic. They came along and they offered a way for the building to stay afloat. Just the tip of the iceberg. By renting 3 floors in exchange for the naming rights. So they rent 3 floors. They don't own the building. And they're not the principal tenant. The principal tenant is United Airlines with 25% of the building. This bridge is loud, I don't know a lot of it. And Summer of George is live too. Loading. Okay, anyway, so United Airlines has 25% of the building. A lot of Wicked fans out there. United Airlines has 25% of the building. And I learned that they renegotiated their lease. They now have the naming rights. So when Willis's lease is up, there's a good chance it could become United Airlines Tower. Which is better because it is Chicago's hometown airport, which marks the beginning of the Riverwalk. And I'm going to tell you all about the Riverwalk in just a moment. I want to talk about this green glass building, 333 West Wacker, completed in 1983. The architects are Cone, Pedersen, and Fox. It's my favorite building during the day. I love it the way it reflects all the buildings and the light. It's the best if there's blue sky with some white fluffy clouds. It's in the style that we call contextualism. Again, that's when the building's footprint pays homage to the topography of the land. So we've got a curve in the river, we've got a 360-foot curving glass wall. On the street side, it conforms to the grid. And on a lighter note, it's where Ferris Bueller's Dad works. Now, as I said, marks the beginning of the Riverwalk. It allows you to walk all the way from 333 to Lake Michigan. It was completed in 2017. People ask if there was a Riverwalk before, and the answer is yes. However, it wasn't very welcoming. It had an extremely narrow sidewalk, But what's worse than that, you couldn't walk underneath any of the bridges. So every time you came to a bridge, you had to go up the stairs, across the bridge, back down the stairs. So they added walkways underneath all of the bridges and these silver things. They're called eyelashes. They can be completely hit in the head with debris. Now each bay, that's what we call the areas between each of the bridges, each bay has a theme and a name. This particular bay right here is ecological. It's called the Cove. It's got floating gardens with fauna that's native to the Chicago River. You can fish there, but it's catch and release. We do not recommend you eat fish from the Chicago River. The good news is there's fish in the Chicago River, over 30 different species. Additionally, in this bay, in the water, they've got cloths that have microorganisms to feed the fish. Then they've got what's known as the Fish Hotel, which is designed to promote the spawning of more fish. So if you think about it, it's kind of nice. You can go for a romantic dinner, and the hotel isn't very far away. Now, Mayor Daley commissioned the Riverwalk about 15 years before it got complete, because it had always been the vision of the leadership of the city of Chicago that the river would be the centerpiece of the city. I lived here then, and while I know I don't speak for all Chicagoans, I'm fairly certain when I tell you that the vast majority of Chicagoans had zero interest in hanging out on the Chicago River. If you had told us that on rainy days people would be walking their dogs along the Chicago River, we would have looked at you like you were nuts. Except for I work when it rains, and I see people walking their dogs along the Chicago River. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I saw someone stand up paddleboarding. I wouldn't do it, but to each their own. Now, if you want to know more about the transformation of the Chicago River, in the August of 2018, the New York Times did a slideshow called The Transformation of the Chicago River. Now I want to draw your attention to this building on the other side of the bridge, 77 West Wacker, completed in 1990. The architect is Ricardo Bofill. Oh, it's in the wake zone. No wake zone! I don't know that they heard me, but it's worth saying. So Ricardo Bofill lived in the 1990s. The style is about classical modernism. What we have here is, at the base, we've got arches, which we associate with classical Roman architecture. And the stack of floors, that's the modern element with glass and steel. And on the very top, there are pediments, which we associate with classical Greek architecture. This becomes